Hi, everybody. This is Chris,
This is Matt.
and this is Fantasy General. 1996 SSI, and we're
Another
going to be talking about
SSI.
another SSI. We're probably going to talk about a lot of SSI games on the show because they had so many games.
Yeah, so many games and such a variety of games. Like they touched every genre, I think. Are there any action SSI games? Just like
Like,
raw action? I mean, they must have.
I'm trying to think if they've got like a raw action. I know like Hillsfar was pretty arcadey. Um, Questron had arcadey games in it, but I can't think of
Yeah, that's true.
a pure arcade SSI game.
Yeah, Veil of Darkness was horror action adventure, isometric. But yeah, anyway, they did everything.
Yeah,
God, I'm
and
looking at the list of games and there's just like hundreds of SSI games.
it's so big. And we were kind of talking about this before we started. Like when you think about Origin, you think about Ultima. Think about Interplay, you think about Bard's Tale. When you think about uh, New World Computing, it's Might and Magic.
Yep.
Surtech is Wizardry. Each of them have like a tentpole game that you're like, oh, that was who they were. That was sort of it. Sort of enveloped their company. This one game. SSI was just huge,
Yeah.
just huge.
Did you know they made a Blood Bowl game in
I just saw that.
1995? That's very interesting.
Yeah, computer quarterback.
So strange. But yeah, like,
Mostly strategy and role playing.
yeah. But they were an amazing company. I always liked that you can always tell an SSI manual from any other
Oh yeah,
manual because they'll have the same font and layout. I really like that. I find it comforting. Like, oh,
yeah.
new SSI game.
No, they had a formula they nailed down really, really well. And even if the games varied from each other a little bit, you kind of knew your way around it pretty quick.
And they were consistently good games too. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's not like they just shoveled out shit games all the time.
No,
Like every one of these games, I'm sure is. I mean, I haven't played all of them, obviously, but uh, every SSI game I've ever played is at least serviceable,
right.
if
Uh,
not good.
I think when we played Shard of Spring, I mentioned it was the lowest rated in their manuals rankings. Like,
Yeah,
so if that's the worst SSI game and we liked it,
yeah,
like just go to SSI, pick a game, you're gonna have a good time. Anyway,
yeah. Hey,
we
Chris,
do
is
go
this a
off.
review
This
of
is not a
Fantasy
review
General?
of Fantasy General. Uh, Basically, each month we pick a game, play it for the month, come back, talk about it, just our experiences, not a review. Two assholes with an opinion. Take it as such. This is more of a book club format, which means we'll talk about the game. We might go off topic. They go on a history of SSI for a few moments.
Yeah,
We will wind our way back to the game. Um, let's jump into it here, just like the game jumps you into it, because the
yeah.
game has no splash screen. Just here's your menu, go.
Right. It's all business. Fantasy General is.
Yeah.
So they made a bunch of these general games. I think there were like nine of them in total.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and this was like the what was it, the third
Third,
or fourth one?
third one in the series.
Yeah. So there was Panzer General, Allied General, and then Fantasy General.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to me that we started with Fantasy General versus one of the more based in reality SSI games.
Which probably has everybody who's into the general games just screaming at us right now.
Probably, yeah.
Because some of the reviews I was reading on this were like, if you're, some of the more tactical war people will probably balk at the fantasy environment and lighthearted nature of the thing. But that's what we needed for an entry. We're not typically tactical gamers. I like a
Yeah.
tactical RPG, but I generally have not really done a deep dive into a proper strategy game.
Yeah, as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little more interested in history, and
Hmm.
so now I kind of find those things maybe a little more appealing.
Yeah.
Like I would like to go back and maybe play Panzer General or
Hmm.
whatever,
Right.
and just kind of see what it's about. Like the historical context and stuff is interesting.
Hmm.
But I think Fantasy General probably was a good place for us to start because it's not like based in reality. It's just
No.
kind of a little more lighthearted uh, endeavor, I think,
Right.
than the strategy games.
I think what's funny about it is I originally thought this was some weird spin-off D&D universe and that this was supposed to be a D&D game. So the first
Yeah.
time I played it, I was trying to play it and apply D&D rules and D&D stuff to it, and none of it fit that. And so I
No.
thought, "Oh, this is a bad game." And it's
Right.
not. It's just not a D&D game. And once I accepted that, I had a great time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's its own thing, and there's kind of a story, but it's the story's not super involved. It kind of treads lightly on the whole plot of the game and the campaign, uh, which I think it would have benefited from some more cohesive story elements. Uh,
I want to go back here just a second.
yeah,
Because
it doesn't really feel like you're part of this epic battle because it's just like, oh, this guy's got his troops here. You got to go take care of it.
mhm.
So I was kind of a missed opportunity, I think, in that way because like you want to feel like you're doing some Lord of the Rings shit,
Mhm.
uh, but like they didn't do any work in giving you the big baddie with the personality where you like I never felt like I hated the other guy. Like
Right.
a lot of games, uh, uh,
I could just as easily be the bad guy in this game as the good guy and I wouldn't know the difference.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, right. It's not like where you are feeling something the whole
Mhm.
time or like that bastard. Like even in Populous, I felt that
Yeah.
anger at the other guy, and there was no story in Populous really, but this is just like a whatever, you know.
Right. One of the reasons I paused this on this screen, I am going to have. We talked about the manual. The manual's great. Love the manual.
Good manual.
The UI of this, I have serious problems
Yeah, it's all these buttons down the side. Like this is it,
with. Mhm.
uh, and it's not always clear what they do, and it doesn't feel like a good cohesive UI.
But so I'm going to hit this play a second. Watch near the top that little gray spot in there as I hover over each of these places to go,
Yep.
because what it's going to say is like that's the castle you're starting at supposedly. That says attack the enemy here and attack the enemy here. That is the only insight you have into what you're walking into.
Right, and after this drove me nuts. After you click on them, it gives you a rundown of the situation. But at that point, you're committed. Like
Right.
you clicked on it, you're in it. Like this is the battle you're doing. So you have no way of making an educated choice, and
No.
there's no real context where I mean you're trying to take over the continents. There's a
Right.
bunch of continents. You're trying to win every battle or move your way through
Hmm.
all the continents. But yeah, it doesn't give you
The choice then
any
becomes
guidance.
meaningless.
Yeah,
Might as well have just flipped a coin or anything else until you've played through it several times. And
right.
that is the correct way to play Fantasy General, is to play through the campaign several times until you learn what's going to happen in the battles coming up so that you can build an army not only for the battle you're in but for the next battle.
Yep. That is a huge part of the strategy of this game is that you're dragging this army through combat after combat and you don't really have the latitude to change it up
Mhm.
like at all really. You can dismiss units, but you're not getting rich doing this shit.
Mm-mm.
So it's like if you dismiss units you're just throwing money away, but at certain points in the game you need things from your army,
Yeah.
And if you don't have those things, it's really difficult.
And I know that sounds kind of vague, so we got the army screen up here. Let's kind of break it down. You have uh, mortal units, magical units, mechanical units, and I think that's it. I don't think there's a fourth type of unit. Someone will have to correct me on that.
Is it fly? Did you say flying units?
Well, flying units are a thing, but there's like three brands. There's mortal,
I see.
magical, and mechanical. And then in those brands, you have two types of infantry: skirmishers, archers, cavalry, light cavalry, and then two types of flying units: a siege engine and a spellcaster.
Yep.
And mortal units can upgrade, mechanical ones can't. Stuff like that, back
Well,
and
you
forth.
can't you up? You can upgrade your catapults, can't you?
Upgrade your catapults, but those aren't considered mechanical. Mechanicals are more like golems and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So there's some later game enemies that were
Oh, I
units that
see.
you can't upgrade.
I see.
Um, and you'll see here it says race mortal, melee 9, attacks 15. This is a good old SSI strategy game. It's lots of numbers,
Yep.
lots of numbers. Um, and air units have different damages versus air versus ground. Same with your siege units. So, and you're spending money, and you get sort of a finite amount of money from exploring dungeons. And by exploring, I mean moving a unit onto them
Yeah.
and winning battles. So you're not just able to sit and compile gold every round to
Yeah.
upgrade everything else.
You're not going to grind your way to a great army in
Mm-mm.
this thing at all.
And I think this is one of the mistakes you and I made. Did you have a balanced research? There's a research portion to this too, by the way.
Yeah. Like at first, I thought uh, in that screen it was just like how much I was paying the troops and like it would affect their morale and stuff. But no, it's research for troop upgrades, which I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why I thought that, but yeah, yeah, you can research it, but it's a balancing act because if you dump all your money in research, then you can't buy units, and if you buy a bunch of units, you're just gonna have a bunch of shit peasant guys that
Right.
get killed right away.
I'm thinking like I should have changed up where I put my research though. Like maybe not researched light infantry and put more in like cavalry or something like that. Focus more on my personal combat style so that
Yeah,
I could have done that. If I had another month to play, I might go back and do that. And that's the thing. I would happily play this game another month. I might go back to this game sometime. But
yeah, I did have a lot of fun. I My experience was that I restarted and restarted several times because I kept hitting that thing where like my army's not right for this next combat, and it's still way too early in the game.
mm,
And what I should have done is just powered through it and then fine tuned.
right.
But I got kind of caught up in this idea that I was gonna have the
The
right army
perfect
for the
play.
right
Yeah.
fight. Yeah, but I will say that if you go back and replay the battles, it gets exponentially
hmm
easier and easier. And so by the time I was, uh, playing this last time, I can get off the continent without losing a guy.
Yeah.
Like it's
Because it's
easy
always the
when
same
you
map.
right and you know what you have to do. We can keep this moving probably.
Well, I want to keep this moving, but I wanted to, while we're in here, point out one of the other things that's interesting. You have this item pool. You will find items that you can assign to units, and that helps boost that particular unit. So, like, there's a magic shield that I usually would give to my heavy cavalry, and then call them like paladins or something. I'd rename them so I knew they were the guys with shields.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so we're going into the first combat. It's giving me a chance to sort of fine tune my army before this next combat begins.
Yep.
Buy any
You can
more
see you have
units, upgrade units, but since it's the first one, can't really do
and again you not only is it difficult to have gold, but even when you do have gold, you can only buy like in the upper right corner there, you can only buy 4 units at
either.
this time. And
Yes,
that's kind of a pisser. Like I don't want to have that constraint. I get the having a constraint, and it should probably be money.
This game puts a lot of, for the sake of game, here's the research screen.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of constraints for the sake of making it a game.
Hmm.
And we'll talk a little bit about that more, but I think that's its biggest weakness. But yeah, here's the research thing. So you can kind of see like I'm putting 7% in everything.
Yeah, that's what they give you right out of the gate,
Right.
and it's a good starting spot,
Mm-hmm.
I
But like I
think.
said, I personally I never use light infantry for anything. They just get chewed up. So I probably should have lowered that way down and not cared and put that 7% into, for me, cavalry. I loved my cavalry and light cavalry. Oh, or siege engines because I desperately needed them later in the game. Uh,
Right. Yeah, I read someone who was all about sky hunters. I
mhm.
read a strategy posting, and man, early game they're so weak, but apparently they get pretty badass as
Yeah.
you research them. So, yeah, I didn't really use light infantry that much. Uh, they're good for just plopping in a town to hold off, invaders until your cavalry can get across the map to mop up or whatever.
And somebody might make the argument that light infantry is a great way to go because they're cheap. So even though you can only have like four more on that screen, as they die, you can buy more during combat.
This is true. I
So,
never found myself with enough money that I felt like that would have been a viable strategy, but I
but I
didn't
wasn't
get
using light
super
infantry.
far. Yeah, right, right. And yeah, I mean, you definitely get what you pay for with these
Hmm.
guys. I liked
So,
heavy infantry a lot. I used a lot of heavy
did
infantry.
you? I didn't
Yeah.
use a lot of that either, and maybe that's.
Uh,
What did you?
skirmishers are interesting.
Hmm.
The way you move in this game, like you can move and attack or attack then move if your dudes are already in
Hmm.
place.
What did you like
And
about heavy infantry?
they just seem to like they have decent movement, decent combat ability. They were just like a good all-purpose,
Hmm.
whatever. You can throw them at anything really. The archers are way too slow. That drove me nuts. Cavalry, I found a little bit spongy. I
Cavalry
like
can be
that light,
spongy, but they will blow things apart when they hit.
right? And you can get them where they need to go,
Right.
which is huge. Because you spend a lot of time in this game just trying to fucking get people places.
Hmm.
And like, God help you if you clean up like 80% of the guys and then miss a few that are hidden, and then have to like traverse the whole map to get back to kill like the last two guys. That's very frustrating
Right.
because the other constraint is the turn constraint,
Hmm.
which I think was a terrible idea. I
Yeah.
hated that thing. Like, just let me do it. Why do I have to do it in 15 turns? It doesn't make any sense at all.
A turn constraint could have been an interesting mechanic for one or two battles. Hey,
Yes,
you have to do this, or he's going to summon a demon and destroy things.
right,
Okay, we got a ticking clock, but every battle, for seemingly no reason, I've got to do this one in 9 turns.
right.
You can do it, but then it shapes your army as much as what the units are on the field.
Yeah, right. There's no extended mop up operations. It's always like I was down to the wire in
Hmm.
most fights, especially when it gets harder, or especially when there. I think the last battle on the first continent, or maybe the first battle on the second continent, there's like three towns you have to take over, and you have to haul ass. And like your inclination and the way I wanted to play it was to capture all those towns and push my forces down, but you don't really have that option.
No.
So it's not really
Well, and
uh,
I don't,
conducive.
yeah, I don't remember I know the one you're talking about. It's the first battle on the second continent. And I know you've got to take over some towns, but you don't have to take over all the towns. And this is one of the
Right.
things that you need to look at your strategy map sometimes and see what your objectives are. I'm not saying that's what you did because I think there are three you got to take over and they're like hell and gone from where you start.
Yeah, they're like way at the south and you start way in the north.
But there's like two in the middle that you could bypass. I mean, it leaves some units there, but you could blow past them and get down to what you need to do. And you got to kind of play that risk and that strategy here.
The other thing I really hated,
Yeah, that
I
map.
like the strategy map. That is good. And like often in the one we're discussing with the three cities you need to take, they're flagged, and
Yep.
it's like and then you get some flavor text that kind of tells you. But there was one, I think it might be the second battle on the first continent, where it's like he's trying to break through your lines. You've got to
Hmm.
stop him. That is not a good explanation of the battle that you're about to fight,
Right.
because it's not that you're protecting your lines and trying to stop him from getting off the screen or something. It's just another battle. Like you just have to kill the dudes.
Yeah.
And the objectives are not, in my experience, they weren't really objectives. They
No.
weren't really connected to what the flavor text made it seem like.
Yeah, the flavor text was there to add meaning to the objectives, but the objectives did not back up the flavor text.
And
So
really the objective of all of these is to kill all the other dudes and
kill the
have him
control
surrender.
points, take the control points, kill the dudes. At some point they'll surrender because they realize they can't win. Take it.
Yeah, he surrenders when he has one guy
Yeah.
left.
Um
And that's it. Did you accept his surrender every time?
yeah, I've had him surrender when he had more than one guy left.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's just at a certain point he's like, I can't win. Either I don't have enough cities or I don't have something, and they surrender. Um, but
Yeah, maybe on the ones where you take the cities,
mhm.
he surrenders after you take them.
So
Yeah. So in that regard, like it could have been a lot more varied with the gameplay. I think
mhm.
uh, maybe some capture the flag type battles, maybe some stop him or just survive for 15 turns or something like that.
Survive for 15 turns would have been huge. Don't let him take
Yeah.
your city for 15 turns.
Yep.
Would have varied it up just enough that okay, we've got a new thing going on. But because you're not gaining money each turn, because like sometimes when you let's talk about hit points for a second before I go back
Hmm.
to this other thing. There's hits and there's kills, or there's wounds and there's kills. So
Hmm.
some of your units can get wounded, you can rest, they'll come back. Some of your units are killed, they're gone. They're just gone. So if you've got somebody with what's like 15 hit points, that's 15 units.
Yeah.
When those units are killed, your max hit points goes down. So you will never out like you can't fight a war of attrition because there are some things you just don't get back. Them
Right.
too, but we don't need this turn limit because there is a loss point for you where you're just not going to fight your way out of it.
Right.
So you have an inclination to keep it moving. I
Yeah,
don't.
and you can rest and heal your wounds too, which
Mhm.
is a good strategy
Yeah,
element, because you have to walk that line of, do I pull my troops back or do I
rest them.
risk it? And
Hmm.
like, because he's trying to do the same shit, he's
Yeah,
trying to like pull his dudes back and rest them. So that part of it was fun and interesting.
and I
Like
found the AI okay on that.
I thought it was pretty good too. Yeah, I thought overall that this game was fun and
Hmm.
interesting. It sounds like we're dogging on it, I think,
I was gonna say we're gonna
quite a
go into our
bit.
typical mo. We like this game. Now let me tell you why it sucks. But we did
Yeah,
like this game.
it was fun, and like it's a good strategy game. I like strategy games, so this
Yeah.
was fun, and like I liked all the different elements, and
Hmm.
and there's enough strategy involved that it's like you could get really down in the dirt and like look at the numbers, because it tells you when you attack, it tells you high level what the predicted outcome is going to be,
Yep.
so you know if you're doing something really stupid or not,
Like
like
right
right
here.
there
Yep.
in the
Down in the
bottom
bottom left.
left. Yeah. So I can't, it's a little blurry for me, but
It
he's gonna
says
he's gonna lose one guy and wound four, and you're just gonna have one wounded. So like that's a good attack.
right. Now
But you
let's
could
watch what
crunch those
actually happened.
numbers. Yeah.
I actually got 2 wounded. He got 4 wounded. So what's happening down on the bottom is a typical outcome, but it's still
Yeah.
you still a little bit of random in there, so you don't know exactly what you're going to get. It is still a little bit of chaos with a little bit of hedging your bets.
Yeah. And I like that you get a feel for like you know, what the outcomes are probably going to be too, just from playing it. Like, if your archers attack their archers, it's probably going to be a wash or
Hmm.
whatever. You really get a feel for it.
Well, and the other
Um,
thing I like about all the different units is all the different units are different. Like
right. They all feel different.
they all have different things they work with. Like skirmishers are spongy, and I didn't understand what made them great until a little bit later when I realized when they attack, unless it's a ranged unit, there's no chance of them getting hit. If they get hit, they're getting hit hard. But if they attack, they can do damage with impunity.
Right.
Uh, Same with archers. And archers will, if you have an archer behind a unit and that unit gets attacked, they will offer cover fire and back up the thing. But you can't have an archer do a ranged attack. You can't have a siege weapon do a ranged attack. A siege
Siege
weapon won't
weapons.
defend you, but if you
Yeah.
attack next to a siege weapon, the siege weapon will also attack the thing you're attacking. So there's this nice troops support each other. Oh, you got to watch that on the enemy side too.
Right.
Each one has different strengths. We have a rock paper scissors thing going on within what troops affect what troops more. There's a lot going on for a very simple interface and mechanic, which is part of what really frustrates me about the UI.
Yeah. And this is something I think it's hard to get a really solid feel for all those mechanics in a month. Uh, because you will improve as you play this game, and you'll learn your units. You'll even learn the character you play, like
Yes.
what they can do, what they're good at, because each one has different,
I was going to say
you
we didn't
know,
talk about that at all. You pick a starting guy and they
yeah,
have different special abilities that you
yeah,
can
some
use during it.
recruit, some summon dudes,
My
which is
guy
fun.
heals. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's fun, and like it's if you like this kind of game, you can engage in this and really probably get quite good at it and know when to be measured and when to rush in, and
Hmm.
know, you know, get a feel for how long each thing is going to take you. Uh,
And
but
if
man,
the
that UI,
yeah,
yeah,
and when the campaign's done, there's a skirmish mode, and if you can find a friend, there's a play by email mode, which we
yeah,
didn't do, but we should try sometime. I think that'd be fun.
we should,
Um,
yeah. I used to like. Do you remember Warfish? Did we ever play Warfish?
we
It was
didn't
like
play
an
Warfish.
online Risk game that you play by
We did
mail.
play that. Yeah,
I
yeah,
really
yeah.
like that.
That was a good.
This would be fun to do play by mail,
Yeah. VGA
perhaps during the
Planets was
work
the other
day.
one.
PGA Planets was a blast. Yeah, it's so complicated though.
We should do a fan game like people who watch us of VGA Planets.
Oh man, yeah,
I don't
that would
even
be
know if
fun.
that can work anymore. I used to love that game. Um.
Yeah,
Anyway, so yeah, there's so much going on here. The thing I will say about gameplay, like we had a fun, had a good time. I never experienced that just one more move moment where like I'm ready to be done and I'm like, okay, but I want to do one more thing. I want to
right.
tweak my army or make one more move in battle or something, something, something. I never had that Civ moment where I just compulsively kept playing. I enjoyed it when I played, and when I was done, I was done, and whatever.
Yep. Yeah, that was pretty much how I felt about it too. Like it was never super compelling, and having the battles more or less bookended by the turn limit
Hmm.
kind of detracted from that feeling, because you have a definite endpoint. Like I don't advocate saving in battle.
Mm-mm.
I did not like that because it's so contextual. You like forget what the hell you were doing. Uh, so yeah, like once you're done, there's not enough to do to really make you
Want to do it again, do
want to
more.
keep going. Like, okay, yeah, maybe because you know how long the battle's going to take because it's 15
Yeah.
turns. It's going to take slightly longer than your last battle usually.
I want to talk about this coming up here, so I'm trying to pause
Sure.
when it gets there. Oh, dang it.
That very SSI screen where it
Yeah.
shows you the parchment looking.
This dude. Like, you can dig into this on each of your characters or their characters. You can, like, go in and look at them, and you get this great sort of hand drawn element
Yeah.
um, that gives their history, how many kills they had, where they're at.
And
So
you
you
can
really
name
can
them
get.
all.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that. Like if I always named people after I gave them items, so I would remember that they had the item.
Yeah. So no,
Yeah.
I like the little touches like that to this game. What I don't like is, like, on this game or on this screen, the exit to get out of what you're doing is partway up on the left over here, but in the
Mm-hmm.
previous screen it was in the upper right where the computer is, and other places it's in the bottom right, and casting a spell will be in a different place on the left depending on what kind of unit you're in,
Right.
and you know
Right. And
you
it doesn't give
learn
you.
it, but it's not consistent. It's just nails on a chalkboard every time I had to deal with it.
You don't know if you're in a sub menu or the main menu either.
Yeah.
You develop a feel for it. Uh, but it's just, yeah, you're right. It's very inconsistent and it's not a great UI design. Like this was, I think, before people invented those like radial
Yeah.
menus. Like that would have been really nice to just like pop up a radial menu for the guy that you're on and just choose what you want to do.
Or like when you go to attack, have it come up like projected outcome. Do you still want to attack? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes. Go. You know what I mean? Something, I don't know.
I wish it would give you that projected attack before you have to move adjacent to them and put the little sword icon over them. So
Hmm.
you can decide if you really want to move your troop there or not.
Yeah.
Like,
Like
what good is that? Don't tell me after I'm already about to
there.
engage in combat. Like, let me have that information because I
Mm.
don't want to memorize the stats of every one of my troops.
Speaking of information they don't give you, and the fog of war is interesting and broken. I'm glad it's there because I like that if I go too far from something, I can't see what's happening. But let's pause right here. Okay, this is the fog of war right now. This is what all my units can see.
Mm-hmm.
When I click on a guy, who am I going to click on here so it won't show it? Um, when I click on one of these guys, perfect. It has changed so it's showing where he can move, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like it's fog of war. But let's say I move way over here to the right. It looks like no one's there. That's not necessarily true. And I have
Right.
gotten more guys killed moving into what looks like empty, like, oh, I can see over there, but no, I can't. And I'll be like, oh, I've clicked on my guy. The fog of war shows this ruin is empty. And I move up next to it, and there's like 8 guys around it. And he just gets pounded on. It's like,
I think the fog of war is the furthest you can move any of your troops. I think the spotting mechanic is different. No, that's visibility on the
when you
main.
have no one selected, it's just visibility. Once you click on
Right,
a
but
troop, you get
visibility.
their movement. The movement is not your visibility, but they have the same color scheme for both,
Right.
so you get it mixed up.
Managing your spotting is a whole thing that you have to learn about as you play this too.
Yeah.
Because if you walk into an attack, like if if you, they can get an attack if you walk into them
Hmm. And sometimes
unprepared.
by many people.
Right. Right. Or you'll attack and there's archers behind them and you just didn't know,
Yeah.
and so you get like pummeled with arrows while you're attacking.
Yeah.
That's a bummer. Yeah, they could have done better at
either
Uh,
completely blacked out, what you can't see, or just a slightly different shade. You know what I mean?
right.
Like a gray instead of a brown. And this is going to be like my one dig at the graphics on this game. I like the graphics. They are that Windows 95 era graphic that I
Hmm.
actually can get behind. Um, but each map is either brown or green or one color, and it's just one color. Even on
Yeah,
the overworld map, even when you're selecting where you're going to go next, the whole continent is one color. So
right.
it's it's outlined pretty, but it's really monochromatic map wise, and that's too bad.
And the terrain doesn't feel interesting. Like it's very much the feeling of pushing dudes around on a board. Like, and I
Yeah.
get that it's a strategy game and that's the point, and that
Hmm.
I don't need purple mountain majesty or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit boring, and the terrain doesn't feel very salient in the world. Like it's there, it fucks up your movement for sure.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
the terrain matters,
yeah,
but it doesn't look like it matters. And
it
one of
doesn't
the
pop.
purposes of a video game is that the video backs that up.
Right. One thing that helped me a lot with the interface was learning a few of the keyboard commands.
Hmm. I
And
didn't do that. Yeah.
the big one to me is next, because what happened to me
Oh
was when I would go to click on the next unit button, it would, the second it's on the screen, it would drag the whole map
my.
down, and I have to drag the fucking thing back up. So, but if you hit N, it just pops to the next guy and recenters itself, and you don't find yourself dragging that map all over the place by accident.
Is that why you told me to do next unit all the time? Because I had a different reason I needed next unit all the time.
Oh, what was that? Because you were forgetting guys?
I'd forget guys.
That's
I'd try
that's
to
the main
click on a
reason.
guy and end somebody else's turn when I didn't want to. Like, it's definitely handy to use the next unit as opposed to trying to click on someone else. Because,
Yeah, but you have to like balance it too, because sometimes you want to know how far your archers are going to be able to move, for example,
mm-hmm,
before you move the infantry in front of them, or
right.
any number of reasons you have to manage that. But the next unit button is consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And let me say, God bless whoever at SSI implemented the cancel move button. Like, before you finish your move, you can hit the cancel move. So if you fuck up and like you're not just committed.
Right.
Oh, thank God that exists, because it's pretty easy to like make mistakes moving your dudes around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I didn't find myself buying units in the middle of combat very often.
I did.
Yeah.
I kept a flow of that going, and I always sort of regretted it, but I did. Like,
Yeah. I'd rather wait. Maybe this is just a product of me never having money, but I felt like I'd rather wait till I get that payout and buy slightly better units. But then, like you said, that's where like your light infantry based army could be really nice,
right.
because you could dump out, you know, 4 or 5 of them.
Or like you can start getting XP on these units and then upgrade them later with the money. It'll
Yeah,
cost you a little bit more, but you'll have more XP in the unit. So, and this again is where I think it's really interesting because I feel that what we both said is viable. I don't feel like there's one way to play and everyone has to play that way. I think you
totally.
could play lots of different ways. You just sometimes have to know what's coming ahead so you can balance your play style for it, which always cheesy, always unfair. Um, but in the skirmish mode where you're fighting one battle, that doesn't matter. Or if you're doing like play by email against a friend, that's human element. You're never going to know what's going to happen.
Right.
But
Yeah.
like I got to the end of the second continent and had lost almost no units. Like I was steamrolling all the way up to that point. And then they had flying monkeys. And I'm like, okay, so I need some flying units. And I bought green dragons and watched flying monkeys just tear through green
Fucking
dragons.
flying monkeys, man.
I'm like, they're monkeys. This isn't.
Oh,
This makes no sense to me. But
right. Yeah, they're badasses.
and they will mess your
Yeah,
day up.
and then you're stuck, and then it's like, okay, so what do I do? Like,
Hmm.
because there's no way to go back and like win some more battles and earn some money and
Right.
you know
Like
grind up.
I'm here, so I either have to start over or start several battles back and change my flow and buy different things, which might make it harder for me to win those battles. Because the reason I won those battles was the army that got me here.
Right.
So you just gotta kind of think your playstyle through and have a fairly well-rounded army. And I think if it wasn't for the turn units, I would feel all this would be completely fair. Like,
Hmm.
okay, I could have a more balanced army and maybe fight the monkeys a little slower by guarding my siege units and moving in mass or something like that and being a little slower, but I've got 15 turns to take 3 cities, one which has some guy casting spells at me.
Right.
What do what do you do? Or do you ignore them? Do you just let them tear up some of your units? And maybe that was the answers. I just let them tear up some of the units and take the cities with whatever little scrap of people I have left.
Right.
Because it's the end of that continent, so I'm going to go somewhere else in a second anyway.
Right.
I don't
And
know.
that brings me to my advice of have a different save game for every, like,
Hmm.
don't just carry one save game through because you might find yourself needing to go back 3 battles and like
Yeah.
start a different path for your army. Uh, yeah, like I found this pretty hard.
Hmm.
I at first I thought it was pretty easy, but it ramps up quickly. Uh,
It ramps up quickly, but again, it's the same battle each time, so you will learn. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like there was me learning about archers because I'm like both my skirmishers, all three of them are like hovering over and it says, "Oh, you're not going to take any damage," and then the archers shoot and I lose more guys than
right.
anything else. So,
I really like the archer units. I like those supplements to your combat and the siege engines. I thought that was really good
hmm,
mechanically.
right. Once I learned them, I really appreciated them and really like appreciated the layering of the game mechanics. When I first started, I'm like, what's the point of these? They can't take a hit and they can't shoot ranged.
Hmm.
Why do I have archer units? And then I saw one accidentally like out of the corner of my eye attack, and I'm like, oh,
That's why.
that's what these guys are about.
Yeah.
Sweet. Let's do some more of that.
And skirmishers are pretty fun too because they get free attacks and they can't be counterattacked, but you really, that only works to an extent because
Yeah.
you
You,
need
you bring them around for
time.
finish off, or you bring them around for the first weekend up, but then someone else has got to get in there and clean them out before they crush your skirmishers.
Right, because they are spongy.
Hmm. And I always
Yeah.
leave like one light infantry back in towns just in case, just so someone can't just walk right
Yeah, they do that. That is
in.
the time that I hated him the most. That your opponent was like, "Oh fuck! Like I had left the town unguarded. I missed a guy. I was taking the thing back."
Hmm.
Yeah, there was once I was like, "I'm not going to accept his surrender," and then he'd
Yeah.
like popped a bunch of units out of a town, and it took forever, and I lost because
Yeah.
15 turns. Like
I
that's it.
think they offer that in case you haven't like cleared out the dungeons, because dungeons will offer you extra troops or extra money or something you might want for another thing. So if you haven't, that's the other thing. You need to plan your campaign so that you pick up the extras as fast as possible and still get to your goal, or you won't be ready for the end. Or you have
Yep.
to do the end differently. Or something. I wouldn't have even minded a turn counter like in 15 turns reinforcements come.
Right. Like
Okay.
XCOM.
Yeah, I know that after this much time I better be done because FTL did that. Did you ever play FTL?
Yes, I did. I liked that game.
But it had that like ever increasing march of the enemy trying to catch up with you. And if you got caught behind that, you weren't done. but you might as well be. It was going to be hard.
Exactly. Yep.
So I wouldn't have minded seeing something like that. Like at a certain point, reinforcements come, and in 15 more turns, more reinforcements will come. So
Right.
keep it moving, keep it moving.
Yeah. Yeah, but just having you lose the battle, and
Just you're
then when
done.
you lose, like you lose. There's no like go back or you get pushed back. You just lose
Yeah,
the whole
if you
game.
don't have a save
I
game,
didn't like
just
that. Yeah.
welcome
Like,
to the main menu.
yeah, what is this lose the battle, lose the war bullshit? Like that's not like military strategy, you
Yep.
know? Uh, that
Every
bums
battle
me
is your
out.
last battle.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't like that. I think it should have like been more dynamic when you lose.
Right. Push you back when you got to redo one of these battles with the lesser, with whatever army you have left or something like that.
Yeah.
Try and rebuild. But I mean, small complaint, all things considered.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to say about Fantasy General?
No, I think that's all.
Yeah,
I think we kicked it around pretty good.
I now want to play the other general games
Yeah, I
and
would
check
like to
them
do
out.
that too.
Yeah, whether we like them more or less.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
All right.
Yeah.
We have we have nothing coming up. It's
Yeah.
December. I shouldn't say nothing. We will be. Let me pull up my little calendar here. On the 12th, we will do Deathlord. Right.
Yes.
On the 19th, we will do Deathlord.
Yes.
And we will take a break for Christmas. We're not going to do it.
That sounds right.
And then, are we doing it on the 2nd, or are we gonna? Because we're gonna record 4th and 5th for the anniversary.
Yeah, for the year in review.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay, we'll let you know on the 19th if we're doing it on the 2nd.
Yeah, I think we'll do it. I think
Might
we'll
still
probably do
be,
it.
yeah.
I don't want to lose momentum on Deathlord because that's
No,
a blast. Yeah, that's
and
the
it's
live
big.
stream of Deathlord.
Live stream on Deathlord this Thursday, the 12th, at 9-ish Central. Same with the 19th, 9-ish Central. It's about when we start. Um, and yeah, we'll go from there. But otherwise, we will record the beginning of January. We take December off from our little book club here so that we can play our own stuff and do our own things with a little less hassle and not
Yeah.
dealing with the holidays. Um, but we do our year in review. We talk about all the games we played, talk about favorites and least favorites of certain categories, and
Yep.
coming up next,
The the
the
awards
awards
show
award show.
we're gonna get. Yeah, it's not a
No, I'll
high
like
dollar
draw a little
award show.
trophy on a piece of paper and go, and once again, not here to collect.
Yeah.
You know what I
Uh,
should say about this? There was a sequel released for Fantasy General this year.
what? Okay.
There's a
By
Fantasy
who?
General 2 out, uh, owned by Gravity is one of them. Who's the other one?
Well, I'll be damned. Fantasy General 2. Huh.
Slytherin and owned by. And I mentioned this on Twitter, and Catherine's like, "Wait, the sequel to this Fantasy General?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I don't know who's involved with this, but
Hmm. Well, maybe we should try to just have play by email. I think that's a great feature.
I
I
think
liked
more
play by
games should be play
email.
by email, sort of an
Totally.
asynchronous. I can
Yeah,
send
it's
a turn
fun.
off, and you can send a turn back. I wish, like, I don't. I would play Civ with people that way. I would
Yeah.
play. I don't want to necessarily sit and wait while you take your turn. Take a
Right.
turn, send it to me. You can send it back. People used to play chess by mail. We
Right.
can definitely work this shit out, right? Like,
Right. Anything turn based, like
yeah,
it would be fine.
be
You
fine.
just gotta, yeah. Anyway,
Anyway, that's our rant and stuff. Somebody get on that.
Yep. Give us more play by email games.
Project Firestart, play by email.
Oh God.
Somebody get on that.
Yeah. Or
I could
don't.
see it. I could see it happening.
Yeah.
What is that Warhammer game? There's a Warhammer game where you play like fight the aliens in the ship with your Space Marines. Can't think of what it's called.
Oh yeah. I don't know.
All right. Anyway, that's all I've got. I think that's all you've got.
Yeah.
So
Thank you very much.
thanks everybody. Bye.
Goodbye.